Welcome to the AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney, and today my guest is David Lampel. He's the president and CEO of Dealerwing. Welcome, David.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'd like to get started with just a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us something about yourself and a little bit about your career path and how you ended up where you are today with Dealerwing?
I went to school at Virginia Tech. I graduated with a degree in finance, and one of my summers home, I was looking for a job and found a job in the want ads, back when want ads were around, and to sell cars. So I spent a summer selling cars in New Jersey, Jersey Shore. And when I graduated with a degree in finance. I traveled around the United States after I graduated, landed in Fort Lauderdale with my old roommate, and ran out of money. And I was either going to go home and hopefully get a job on Wall Street, probably as a broker. And I decided I didn't want to go live at home. I was going to make a go of it down in Fort Lauderdale, and I applied at a bunch of dealerships and got a job selling cars. And I moved up through the ranks, and that took me in a circuitous route all the way to where I am right now. So I sold cars for a couple of years, moved up into finance, and as a sales manager, I went from Miami, a store in Miami, to Jacksonville, and then from Jacksonville to Orlando. Worked my way up to where I was a partner in a group in the Southeast, and for 16 years almost, and sold out of my stores about 10 years ago, and bounced around doing a few things on my own, trying to make things work that didn't work out real well, and connected with a dealer friend of mine that had a store outside of Tampa that had a program that generated secondary leads, people with credit issues. I wasn't doing anything at the time, so he said, why don't you come take a look at what we're doing? And so I spent about a year and a half with him. He unfortunately got sick. I wound up taking over what we only had a couple of stores at the time. And I took over the program, which was basically a database marketing in-house program for stores, and that became the precursor to what we're doing right now.
Cool. Let's dive right into service, retention, and effectiveness. Tell me why that's important to stores and what those terms really mean to you.
So service effectiveness and service retention is basically a measure of the dealer's ability to keep customers coming in for service. So a lot of times when people buy cars, you have a lot of options as to where they can service their cars. There's a lot of independents out there, and service efficiency and service effectiveness, service retention has to do with the percentage of people that buy cars or service with you that continue coming back. And especially now in the marketplace where there aren't as many cars out there because of the supply chain issues, it's increasingly more and more important for all of the dealers and all the OEMs to get these people back into the store. If you're looking to buy a car and there aren't many cars out there to be had, people are going to be servicing those cars. And if they're going to be servicing the cars, the OEMs and the dealers, they want them to come back. They want them to come back into the store. And statistics show that the more they come back into the store, the more of a chance they have of selling a car in the future. So it's incredibly important for the dealers to retain that business. And all of the OEMs have metrics that they use to measure the effectiveness of each particular dealer and keeping their own customers in their own market areas coming back into the stores. So it's a high priority across the board, and as it should be.
Let's talk about data. How important is the data that you're using, and where does that data come from?
So data is incredibly important. The quality of any dealership's marketing is always going to be proportional to the quality of the data that you're using. Most of the data is being gleaned from a dealer's DMS system, which is their customer base. The OEMs also have data lists almost exclusively. The data lists from the OEM are supposed to always include everybody in the DMS, but that's not always the case. And there's always some people in the DMS that aren't included in the OEM database. So it's important that you have access to both of those. You can also use conquest or out-of-market data. But what's really important when you're talking about data is making sure that the data is accurate and timely. So when you're looking at data, if you have 10,000 names that you're using, you want to make sure if you're marketing to those 10,000 people that those 10,000 people still own the car, they're still in the area, and all of the communication that you do is accurate. So the addresses are accurate, the email's accurate, et cetera, et cetera. What we have found is that if you have 10,000 people, the fallout from the accuracy of the data could be as much as 30 to 40%, meaning that if you've got 10,000 people in all of your lists, in your DMS lists, OEM lists, or any other list that you have, you really only have 6,000 or 7,000 people that can be verified, still owning the car, still in the area, all of the communication is accurate, and that's incredibly important. So what we do on our side is we make sure that we run all of those tests on data to make sure that people still own the cars, that they're still in the area, that all of the addresses and emails and everything are correct, so that we're only marketing to people that are actually going to get the message. So instead of marketing to 10,000 people because that's what you believe is out there or what you're being told is out there, you want to run through and you want to make sure that you dive down deep enough to make sure that the people that you're communicating to actually own the car and they're ready to hear your message. It's just a much more efficient, cost-effective way to market.
Well, wow. I mean, if you've got 30 to 40% of your data is inaccurate, that's a very big portion of your marketing budget. I mean, if you're wasting 30 to 40% of your marketing dollars, that is a tremendous waste.
It is, and it's not always that it's inaccurate. I mean, you could have accurate information, but maybe you don't know that the guy moved, or maybe you don't know that the guy sold the car. Or maybe the address doesn't have the correct apartment number on it. Or maybe the email address is misspelled. I mean, there could be any number of reasons that you have those issues. And when we do our testing and we run 10,000 people through, you're going to have fallout. I mean, you're just going to have fallout. And you know, if the marketing program that you have, that you're utilizing, pretty much just covers everybody because you don't dive into that, then yeah, there's going to be, not only is there going to be waste, but there's going to be waste not just for my campaign. There's going to be waste for front-end campaigns. There's going to be waste for recall campaigns and all of the other communications that you do, not to mention, if you've got a BDC and people calling, they're going to be wasting time as well. So it's incredibly important to make sure that just like I said at the beginning, the quality of your marketing is directly proportional to the quality of your data. You want to make sure you're hitting the right people. And when you talk about conquest data, that data that you can get, everybody wants to bring new people in and never been there, that data typically is the least accurate across all of the spectrums, no matter what you're pulling. So you want to really be careful that you've got a system where you can verify all of that as best you can.
Okay, well, you know, you mentioned the marketing campaign to the people. What does a retention marketing campaign look like? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, the structure, what's in there, what's not in there, and what it does?
So a successful marketing campaign, you know, really is built this way. If you look at marketing should be looked at as a puzzle. And your puzzle, to be successful, needs to have a bunch of different pieces. If your marketing campaign consists of one big piece, that means that your only avenue that you're communicating is through this one big piece, then you're selling yourself short because not everybody is going to respond to the same stimulus. There's going to be people that respond to a direct mail piece. There's going to be people that respond to an email. There's going to be people that respond to a phone call. There's going to be people that respond to a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad, a TikTok ad, a billboard. Some of it's going to be done with branding. So a successful marketing campaign is going to include a bunch of different pieces. Now, if your impetus or your methodology, you're looking at, you want to talk about service retention, then your marketing needs to be geared towards people that have not been in a long period of time, because if they haven't been in, you want to get them back in. That's what service retention is all about. But you also need to make sure that the people that are coming in keep coming in. Because if you bring in 10 people that haven't been in previously or that left and are going someplace else or have never been in, and you forget about the people that are currently coming in and they decide not to come back in, then you're just like a hamster on a wheel. You're bringing 10 people in, 10 people leaving, you haven't accomplished anything. So the marketing campaign needs to be geared towards that.
Okay.
And with respect to service marketing appeals a little bit more in a traditional sense. If I'm going to compare that to front-end marketing, what we believe is front-end marketing is much more emotional. It's much more of an emotional appeal when you're looking to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, if you're on Facebook and you're looking at cute pet videos and you're looking at what your family's doing right now, and an ad pops up for the blue BMW that you were looking at the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at these videos and you're thinking, wow, you know, I remember that car. That car was really nice. And before you know it, you click on that link and you're 10 minutes down a rabbit hole doing exactly what the marketing is designed to do, which is to get your attention. And now you're on the dealer's website, hopefully on the way to buying a car. Not the same message when you put an oil change offer out there. There's a little bit of a disconnect because there's very little emotion wrapped up in an oil change offer versus the blue BMW that you're looking at or whatever car you were looking at. Mm-hmm. Then that doesn't mean that it's not effective. It just means to us, from what we've seen in our metrics, that it's not as effective as when you do that on the front end of the store type marketing. Traditional marketing seems to work better for us for what we have seen on the service side. It's a little bit more old school on the service side because there's not as much emotion wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
You know, selling somebody a car elicits all of these emotions. Telling somebody they need service, not so much. So it's a different message across the board. So that doesn't mean that any of them need to be let out. It just means you need to have, that's where omni-channel comes from, different marketing in different spaces, but there are different weights. And what I want to caution you on is that if it's just one big marketing piece, then you're missing the boat because not everybody's going to respond the same way.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You had said that it's important to market to the people that are already coming into service as well as the people that you want to bring back to service.
Yes.
And so what's the message look like? So if I'm bringing my car in and I'm doing all my services at your dealership,
right,
and you want to send a message to me to make sure I don't defect, what does that message look like?
Well, the message, you want to hit areas, I would think, that are going to resonate with everybody. So the more general you can make that message, meaning you want to do things that people recognize, like oil changes and those types of things, or overall percentages off on maintenance and repairs. If you get really specific, you limit that audience. And one thing that you want to remember when you're deciding to market and you're looking at people that are already coming into your store, maintenance isn't OEM specific. Mm-hmm. People don't need to come into the dealer to get their oil changed, tires rotated, to get their battery checked. They can go to the Jiffy Lube and the Pep Boys, AutoZones of the world. They can go all of those places to get the exact same work that you are at the dealership. So if you stop communicating with those people because you're assuming they're coming into your store, that is a slippery slope to a ton of attrition. And all the statistics show that that's exactly what happens. So just like anything else, you want to keep that communication in front of those people as well as the people that have already gone, because the people that are coming to you now, they're potentially going to be the people that are already gone, that have left, if you don't communicate to them in one way, shape, or another. And it's really important that you cover both mixes. Conquest and bringing people in is incredibly important to grow your database. But by the same token, you don't want to grow it by 10 and lose 10. When you grow it by 10, you want it to plus 10 because you want to keep the people that you have.
Yeah, you don't want to be running on a treadmill.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Let's talk about predictive marketing. Can you share with me a little bit about what predictive marketing is and how dealers can use it?
Absolutely. So predictive marketing is trying to determine through a set of analytics exactly when Joe Smith is due for service. Mm-hmm. You look at the time it's been since he's been in the store, you look at the mileage that he drives, and you use that to extrapolate, okay, he's due to come in July and August. So we're going to communicate to him in July and August. There's no reason to communicate to him before or after that because we need to hit him based on what we predict he's going to need that service. The problem with that is it's very hard to nail that on the button. And if you miss it by 30 days plus or minus and you're not in his mailbox or in front of mine, whether it's digital, wherever your communication is, you can rest assured that the Jiffy Lubes and the Pep Boys and the other companies in the world, they're hitting him consistently all of the time. And it only takes one time for you to miss that mark. Somebody else is in their mailbox and they're like, the dealership they're really nice. I like those guys. And they have a great waiting room. But Jiffy Lube's right around the corner. They're right around the corner from pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
They're right around the corner. It's a Saturday. I really don't want to waste the time. I'm going to go over there. And you know what? They may not get the service that they get at the dealership, but it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be good enough for a lot of these people. And so we believe that a consistent message is absolutely the key to keeping customers and gaining customers across the board. We have had much more success communicating with them. If they just come in the store, you don't need to communicate to them. So you set a date, okay, we're going to start communicating with this guy because he's getting close to needing service or whatever he needs. And that message needs to be consistent, and it needs to be through various channels in order to make that work. We have found that to be far more effective than trying to predict, okay, these 2 months, we're going to hit him here, and then we're going to hit him here. It just doesn't work as well. It doesn't work as well. And, when you have so much competition for that market, knowing that they can go anywhere to get their service done, that's when you see erosion in retention and a lot of the metrics that are real important to the dealers and the OEMs.
I imagine it varies by brand and what vehicle a person owns and the age of their vehicle, but is there any kind of standard rule, like I need to touch my customer, I need to have 10 impressions a year, I need to have 20 impressions a year, or 5 impressions a year? I mean, what's the range of times I need to touch each of the people that are my customer?
So that's a good question. So rolling back the clock, when I started in the car business, the impressions had to be, you need to have 4 or 5 impressions in order to get somebody off the couch to make a decision. Mm-hmm. Well, if it was 4 or 5 impressions back then, whether it was TV, radio, billboard radio was really big, in order to get somebody the impetus to get up off the couch. Now, with social media and all the digital age, you're in the teens, how many times they need to see it, because there's so much communication going out in so many different areas. You need to be front of mind, and service is very much front of mind. Service, because they can go anywhere, a lot of it is front of mind. You're driving down the street, you've got a check engine light, your immediate response is, okay, where do I need to go? Yeah. And you want to be front of mind in that situation. And those impressions can come from any one of those sources, whether it's traditional and direct mail, or it's emails, or it's digital communications, whether you're on Facebook or wherever you're at, in addition to radio, TV, billboards, however you want to. That's all considered impressions, all front of mind. But you're going to need a lot more presence right now than you ever did before. Ever in history, there's so much more information out there than there was previously, and everybody's competing for it.
Well, now, you just mentioned, the traditional, marketing avenues. You mentioned the digital marketing avenues. You mentioned social media. And in each of those buckets is like 20 different opportunities to touch the customer. With an omni-channel approach and all these different things going on to reach out to customers, how do you know if it's working? What do you measure, and how do you measure it?
So that's another great question. So if you can't measure, I learned a long time ago, you can't expect what you don't inspect. So if you can't inspect it and you can't peel back the layers of the onion to see exactly what's working, then you run the risk of wasting a lot of marketing dollars. And attribution is critical to knowing where you're at. Mm-hmm. So if you're using I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. If you have a company that markets to your entire base emails, they send out emails to your entire database. If they take credit for everybody that walks in the door, which most of the marketing companies do, they market to somebody, it pops up on an RO, they take credit for it. If they market to your entire database, they could conceivably take credit for every single person that walked in your door and walk into you and say, it's a good thing you used us, because without us, you wouldn't have had any business, which you and I both know is grossly incorrect.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important to make sure that if you're doing traditional campaigns, direct mail campaigns, email campaigns, social media campaigns, if you're using the BDC, that you have a way to measure exactly what the responses are. So for instance, on a BDC, it's very easy. You're making outbound phone calls. If you've got a BDC, making outbound phone calls. Elizabeth has 10 phone calls, 10 appointments made. These are how many showed up. It's a direct response to what she did. Very easy to measure. On the traditional side, you send out postcards and you measure how many postcards are coming back into the drive. Then it's very easy to see. I sent out 100 postcards, 10 of them came in, 10%. That's what my response rate is. I've seen it. I know what it is. That's exactly how that works. It's much more difficult on the email side unless they come in with the email. And it's even more difficult on the digital side because tracking clicks and tracking things on your website, it's much more difficult to know, was that the impetus for them coming in? And a lot of times there can be more than one thing that has the impetus to coming in. There was a great sheet that I saw one time that had to do with attribution where somebody sees an advertisement for a sneaker on TV, and then they hear the advertisement on a radio, and then they see that sneaker on a billboard, and then maybe they get some kind of a phone call, advertisement on a phone call, and then they see it on their computer. And while they see it on their computer, they go, "Oh yeah, I've seen it 4 or 5 times. I want that," and they order it on the computer. So the guy that's looking and measuring, going, all our money needs to go to the computer and the digital because that's where he came from, not knowing that all of these other things had pieces to it. So while it can be difficult to measure all of those avenues, there are ways to drill into who actually came in and to do that. And that's critical for you being able to make sure that you're maximizing your marketing dollars. For instance, how long has it been since this guy's been in the store? This guy hasn't been in the store in 400, 500, 600 days. And he's supposed to come in every 10 months, let's say, and he hasn't been in for that long, and you communicate to him with whatever that channel is, and he comes in, probably came in because of the advertising. Maybe not 100%, much more so than somebody that you're marketing to in a blanket group that just happens to come in, and you're really not sure. He may be the neighbor of the guy next door.
Yeah.
So having the ability to be transparent and know where those people are coming in is a critical part of the mix.
You know, we have a similar issue with AutoSuccess. You know, we do print and we do digital.
Correct.
And there's been tons of studies done by universities that companies that have a strictly digital, advertising budget, when they add print, it lifts the digital. The digital lifts when you add print because you can't click on a print ad.
Correct.
And nobody's going to dial the phone number in the print ad. They're going to go to the website, and now it's a digital lead.
Correct.
But there's definitely a measurable lift that comes when you're doing multiple channels.
Correct. And if everybody has an online presence now, so people will get their services. They'll go to the service scheduler and they'll do that. So the tendency is to think everything comes from there, and that may be the case in some ways, where a lot of it does. But all these other avenues always play a part, and the better able you are to measure your responses, the more comfortable you can feel when you're cutting those advertising checks, that the marketing's actually working with you. So, you put together a game plan if service retention that you want, and you know what audiences you want to hit and how you want to hit them, and then you look at the data that you have and making sure that the data is accurate and you're dealing with high quality data, you're not wasting money on that data. And then once you put those messages together and you get them out in whatever channels you're going to use, and like I said, on the sales side, probably going to be more digital because it's the type of appeal that it is. On service, it's going to be a little more weighted traditional, or in my opinion, at least it should be. And then you need to be able to measure all of those responses. And when you do all of those things together, you're going to come up with a pretty accurate roadmap of the money that you're spending and how's it working for you.
Well, I got the magic question now. I guess the most important thing with any campaign is the end result. What's in it for me? So I'm a car dealer. I'm doing things okay. I'm not doing them the best way, but my data's probably not as clean as it could be, and my marketing's not as measured as it should be. And then I start doing everything the right way. What's the opportunity there? What's the change in my business that could take place if I go from doing what most are doing to doing these things the correct way?
So that's going to vary from dealer to dealer and the size of the dealer. But if you go back to the data analogy and you're marketing to 10,000 people and you really only have 7,000 people that are worth marketing to. So if you use $1, just for simplicity's sake, $1 a head per person that you're marketing to, that's $10,000 versus $7,000. So if you spend $7,000 and you're marketing to the right people and you get the same results that you do for $10,000, and the data, you have more data available, good data available, then you can take that same $10,000 spend and you can leverage that $10,000 spend on people that are actually going to get the message and listen to the message. What does that equate to? If you have 30% in your data that isn't accurate, and you put together all of the methods that we're talking about right now with respect to the right campaign to the right person at the right time, being consistent, using the right data, and then being able to measure it all, then yeah, you're potentially going to be looking at a sizable increase without any additional spend. Without any additional spend. So, smaller stores that don't have as much data in their database, it's obviously different than somebody that has a huge database, but percentages are percentages. Doesn't make any difference. It works the same across the board. And so that's huge.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience today before we go?
Yeah, I will like to tell you, if I talk a little bit personal about Dealerwing and what we do.
Sure.
One of the things that our biggest challenge is we use a lot of the same ingredients that everybody else uses. So there's only so many different mediums that you can use to communicate. So we use our direct mail, and we use emails, and we have social media, and we work with BDCs, and we work with the OEMs. And when you use a lot of the same ingredients, you tend to be grouped in with everybody else. But we have an analogy that we made ours that we think is pretty accurate. And that is, if you're baking a cake, you're going to use the same ingredients to make a chocolate cake. You're going to use milk, flour, sugar, eggs, cocoa, butter. You're going to use the same ingredients to make a chocolate cake that everybody else is going to use. But a Food Town or a Safeway or a Kroger chocolate cake is a very different experience than a Godiva chocolate cake, using the same ingredients. It has to do with the quality of the ingredients, the way you process what you do. It's all about the process and the ingredients that you're using, the quality of the ingredients you're using. And the end result is, what does the cake taste like? What are the results that you're getting? So you can use a lot of similar ingredients and get a very different result. And that's what we pride ourselves in doing, is working with better ingredients, better processes. Even though we use some of the same ingredients that everybody else uses, the results in what we produce are significantly different based on our OEM knowledge, and a lot of the different things that we use, the OEM knowledge, the data, our specifics with service retention, effectiveness, and driving traffic makes a big difference. And most of the dealers, they just want the cake. Yeah. They don't want to bake it. They don't want anything to do. Just give me the cake, and I want the cake to taste really well. Most of them don't want to be the bakers. They don't need the formula. They just want the end results. And that's what we provide.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us today, David.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure being here. Always enjoy talking shop.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. Today, my guest was David Lampel from Dealerwing. We look forward to seeing you again on a future episode. This one is Over the Curb and Burning Gas.